coast and around the world. This is Kaleidoscope, America's most exciting radio magazine. Stay tuned for more.
Hello, you are listening to Sunny Chayes, Singing in the Rain, and the tagline, Power of One. I am very excited today to have two lovely guests with me who very much embody the power of one. And they are very, very wonderful people who are with us. The first is Congressman Tim Ryan, who was elected in Ohio 6 times, and just newly elected, and bringing a powerful, clear, and mindful vision to Congress and to the process of debate. The ripple effect of this more effective conflict resolution and way of talking about issues is already being felt in Congress. Thank God. For example, Tim, he was telling me that Congress votes usually every week and at 6:30 in the evening, and so he has arranged a contemplative room for members to enter 30 minutes prior, and I'm so happy to mention that he mentioned that it's actually being used. Congressmen come in, members come in for prayer, for meditative thought, for clearing one's head. How beautiful is that, to consider that that is what our members of Congress are doing before they do these extremely important votes. The next guest I'm going to be having on is a man named Jimian, who is a very spiritual, beautiful, and powerful man in his own right. And he, among many other things, he has created a magazine called Mindful. And he's also partnering with Congressman Ryan on some many wonderful things. And I also wanted to mention that the congressman has written a book called A Mindful Nation. So we are going to be talking about that, and I am going to bring on our interview with them. We were having a lovely event at a place called Insight in Santa Monica, and all of the people from Mindful magazine flew in from Nova Scotia, Canada, to be speaking with us, and the congressman was there too. So let's hear their interview. So I am so excited to be here at Insight, and I have two wonderful and charming guests that we're going to be talking to today. And I think I'll do one at a time, and I'll bring you guys in together, because that way we can, I think the audience can handle one at a time of you charming, amazing guys. So let's first start with Congressman Tim Ryan, who's out here from Ohio and gracing California with his charming presence and light. And so hi, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, and great to be with Jimian here from Mindful Magazine.
Thank you. How nice. You're doing introductions for me. You're hired. So, Congressman, I want to talk to you first a little bit about your politics and just kind of what brought you to write the book.
Well, I started in politics 11 years ago in the Congress. I was in the state Senate for 2 years, and it got increasingly more partisan. It got increasingly more chaotic. Just the level of time you need to spend fundraising, working on your committees, back and forth, D.C. to Ohio, traveling the country for other candidates. And in about 2008, I was 35 years old, and that pace was starting to catch up with me. And I thought, at 35, that if I do this 5 more years, I'm going to be burnt out by the time I'm 40, which sounded like a long time, but I'm going to be 40 in July, so it's right around the corner. But that led me to a journey of trying to deal with that level of stress that was happening every day and getting worse and worse. And I grew up in an Italian Catholic family where my grandparents prayed the rosary, my mother prayed the rosary, so there was always time in their day where they set aside for prayer and meditation, and so I flirted with different things on and off throughout my life, and found a mindfulness meditation retreat that started a couple days after the 2008 election in Ohio. And Ohio is always a contentious state, whether it's a statewide office, a Senate seat, or presidency. and especially in '08, it was very, very hectic. So anyway, I did a primarily silent retreat and had a real experience of my mind and my body being synchronized again for a few moments. What I recall as an athlete being in the zone. We call it in athletics, you're in the zone, you're in flow. There's your mind and your body are in the same place at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that dramatically reduced my stress level and increased my ability to focus and concentrate and pay attention.
And be effective.
And be a more effective leader and in my life, in my relationships, and with my family and everything. It just really improved the quality of my life. So I immediately thought after the retreat, boy, we need to teach our kids this. This is something that needs to be in our schools. I mean, if you're not paying attention in school, what's the use? And so I went on a journey that basically John Kabat-Zinn sent me on to meet the scientists, to meet the teachers, to meet the people who were doing this in the military. Met Jimian and the editor-in-chief of Mindful Magazine, Barry Boyce, and we began the early conversations of my desire to put this into a book, to highlight these pioneers who are really shifting our society with their research, with what they're doing in our schools, what they're doing with our veterans, what they're doing in the military, healthcare, all the way down the line. So, here we are trying to shift our politics, our culture, in a sense, to where we're just a little bit more mindful. I know everyone's not going to have a meditation practice and sit on a cushion for a half hour, 45 minutes every morning, but if we just begin to listen to each other, that would be a step in the right direction.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you so much going that direction, and of course we're very excited to have somebody who has a position in politics to be in that place. And I like something that you said in your book, which was about we're having sort of, I think you put it, a silent revolution in our country where things are changing.
A quiet revolution.
A quiet revolution, yeah. And I think that's really true. I mean, we are during the 2000 what am I trying to say? The election we had with Bush and Gore, and people were not just out screaming and yelling in the streets, and it's just amazing that we tend to be a little bit more separated out and kind of living in our own lives. And at some point here, that all has to be up leveled, and also we're connecting.
Well,
so
I hope part of this is for us to realize, whether you're on the left or on the right, that increasing the anger and aggression in the world is not necessarily going to help matters.
Right.
So there's another way to go about this. It doesn't mean you have to back off of a principled position that you think you have. It doesn't mean you don't make your arguments. It doesn't mean you don't advocate, you don't organize, you don't. But to do it at a level where we're just all screaming at each other, we are turning a lot of people off, and they don't vote, they don't participate in the system because they don't want to deal with it. And as I'm traveling around the country, I meet people who do yoga, people who practice different types of meditation, people who are religious in a certain way, but are turned off from the political world. Mm-hmm. And they go to their yoga mat or they go to their meditation cushion to get away from that. And part of my pitch is that you can't. You're the type of person we need to be involved in shaping the debate. Even if you disagree with someone, you can disagree with them in a way that shifts the debate. It moves it into an area that's a little more appealing to people. At least it becomes a discussion. It becomes a debate, as opposed to two politicians on a cable TV show screaming at each other.
Right, or just the sound bites and people thinking that that's truth. So what I love about this idea too, and Jim will bring you into the conversation, is that, like you say, the people who should be involved are often the people who feel, I must be peaceful, I cannot deal with the news and all of that. And I believe that's one of the reasons I do this show with the idea of illumination, education with light, is that we should be educated, we should know what's going on in politics, we should be paying attention, we should dig in a little deeper if possible and find out what is really going on and allow ourselves to have the vote and have our voice. And like you say, the people who are the most self-aware are really the best candidates to be in the arena, voting and having our voice, and maybe even joining you in the political arena, running for office and perhaps being in office.
Well, it's not just the politics, it's what's happening on the ground. So, of course, I'm going to say you need to be engaged, you need to vote, but what A Mindful Nation, the book, was about was highlighting the work that people are doing. And what a Mindful Magazine is about highlighting the people and supporting the people and getting the message out about the people who are in local school districts doing mindfulness that's helping contribute to this shift in the country, in healthcare, in corporate leadership, in corporate America, in the military. The good news. And that's what Mindful does. It takes these personal stories and it highlights them and shares them so that someone in California who's doing some work isn't necessarily aware of someone in Cape Cod doing work in a school. And how did they begin to do that? Or someone who's looking to figure out how to get this implemented in their school. Mindful and A Mindful Nation, Mindful Magazine are both resources to help people find a way to do something that they know needs to be done. And it's not the traditional thing that we've been doing to solve our problems, which hasn't worked.
So in other words, thank you for that. So Jim, I'm going to bring you into the conversation. So what Congressman Tim has laid out is that what I think you're doing is you're really allowing people all over, like you were saying, Tim, to connect. I mean, maybe someone is doing something in a little school here, and then somebody hears about it in Texas, and it's like, at this point it's about joining forces and not going it alone, don't you think?
Yes, very much so. It's I think one of the reasons we're reaching a tipping point is because someone from Ohio who's in Congress, who was a football star, who was raised as a Catholic, is coming to mindfulness because he sees the benefits for children in schools, for soldiers who are serving their country and coming back with severe trauma, and just normal everyday people who are struggling in this very chaotic world. So his message is very accessible to the broader society, and likewise, Mindful Magazine is bringing the same message, that it's not just about those of us like you and the wonderful work that you're doing, and you've been understanding this for quite a long time. We certainly aim to tell the story of the champions, as Tim calls them, who are doing this work, but equally so to make it accessible to a much broader mainstream who are themselves struggling, who run out of options for dealing with the chaos and the complexity of life, and not having a moment amidst all of the ways you're bombarded in the speed of everyday life, and so are open and have maybe heard about someone who's had a mindfulness-based intervention in the hospital that they've gone to, or that their young child has been helped in school. And so all of a sudden, we're not just talking among ourselves about these wonderful things, but it's available to a broader audience, and that's what Mindful Magazine and mindful.org, along with Tim Ryan and A Mindful Nation, are hoping to do.
Well, it's so great to be spreading the good news, and again, I think that's extremely important for people's peace of mind, for people's ability to have faith and hope, and just the idea that they can do it, and just great energy. And I learned many years ago, actually not so many years ago, that there are a number of organizations on this planet. About 4 years ago, it was 1.5 million organizations who were making a difference in the world in all different ways, and now it has grown to 3 million in a year and a half. And so a year and a half from that, so in the last 3 years, with the watching of it, the sort of taking notice of it. And so we are really going to a place where we are, if not at the tipping point, very close to it.
And what I think Mindful Magazine and Mindful Nation try to do is, and the approach is, start wherever you are, because it could become very overwhelming to think, oh my God, we have 1 in 5 kids lives in poverty, we have a healthcare system that's not addressing the needs of its people, we've got these environmental problems that we need to deal with. It could become very overwhelming for a person to say, oh my God, well, hell with it, I'm not going to do anything. I can't make a difference.
That's it.
And I think what the mindful, what we try to do is try to say, just start where you are. There's a great story in Mindful, this issue about a woman in Cape Cod, and she was having problems in her child's school. And the problem, there was a kid who got killed, and then there were some suicides, and she just had a mindfulness practice and just took control and basically started a mindfulness training for the kids. But she wasn't trying to necessarily solve all the world's problems, but she was dealing with where she was and what she could do. And I think that those are the stories you read about. There's a scientist that's just going to do this part of the neuroscientific research, and one doctor is going to deal with their patients. But if we begin to tell these stories, it gives everyone else confidence to say, hey, well, I'll just do a little something where I am, and before you know it, you start shifting the culture.
The reason why this is possible, because what we're talking about with being mindful isn't something foreign or strange. We grew up having our mother say, mind your manners or pay attention, but nobody ever said there could be a way to train yourself to do that. And now scientific evidence is showing that with exercises for the mind, like there are exercises for the body, it's possible to improve your performance in your work, your relationship with your children or your co-workers or your parents. The tough things of everyday life can go better with something that starts out as a very natural thing, something that every human being can do, and it changes everything.
And just the level of our own happiness, peace of mind, contentment, whatever one can get to with that.
Right.
And again, I love what you're both saying, because I'm always a champion of the power of one. It's just something that I always talk about, because again, I feel like you guys, and I've had the feelings myself, and that's really one of the reasons I did this radio show, was that I felt overwhelmed. I didn't feel I was doing enough. It really tugged at my heart. It made me kind of nuts. Yeah. It's like, what more can I be doing? It's just too much. And so the idea of telling the stories of the power of one and having that be what we hear about as much as possible, I think is what makes all the difference. And again, it is great because somebody can hear about that story in Cape Cod and be in some situation in Texas or Montana or Seattle, and they too can kick that into gear.
Right.
I'm sure you guys know Tom Shadyac, who did the movie I Am and kind of brought Jim Carrey to the world with Liar Liar and Bruce Almighty and all that. And he was on my show, and we were talking about random acts of kindness, and he said, I don't believe there are any random acts of kindness. I believe they're ordered. And so what you both are doing with your work and with your book and with your politics and with your organization and all the wonderful people you bring here to share with all the other wonderful people who come here is really, again, showing that power of one.
Yeah.
One book, one magazine, one person, one thought, one connection, and it can make all the difference in the world.
Well, I tell you, we see examples all the time, and the one example that really sticks in my mind coming off of the election, and not to get political, but what we saw in Ohio with the Obama campaign, it was so decentralized, and it went into neighborhoods, and I did a lot of knocking on doors in Ohio because it was a swing state. And you do get to the point you're knocking on doors, and you have 50 doors you're going to knock on in one day. And you think, what the hell am I doing this for? Like, what does this matter? Mm-hmm. But if you stop and take a breath and you think about what's happening, that there are hundreds and thousands of people in Ohio right now knocking on 50 doors.
That's right.
Today. And they're going to do it again tomorrow, and it's going to happen again the next day. And there's a certain faith that you have to have politically in the system to say, well, this is going to work. I hope it works, but I think it's going to work. And then it works, and you gain inspiration from that. And I think this is very similar. It's just these little stories, these little things that are happening. And why I think the magazine is important. My book's a one-off. It's still out there and selling and everything else. But to have a magazine replenishing these stories every few months, I think is really, it builds momentum, and it lets the other people that are doing the work within the context of mindfulness, yoga, whatever the issue may be, it's gasoline on the fire.
That's it. And the other thing is, when you were talking about the 50 doors, and I know that we're coming to an end, I know that you have to go off and do something wonderful. You're going to be speaking. I just wanted to make one comment and then say goodbye, but also the idea, when you're talking about the 50 doors, I think of things, and I tell people about, let's say, drinking out of water bottles. It's like, you know what, I, for my own spiritual integrity, choose not to use plastic as much as possible. I mean, at all costs, or not all costs, but as much as I can possibly do it, I will not use plastic. And that is my place. That's my stand. That's my place in the world. And I know what plastic does. I've learned too much. I just feel I can't use it. So for me, that's also kind of like knocking on doors. And for all of the things that we personally do, I just really do believe they make a difference. And if nothing else, we can sleep a little better at night knowing that we can do what we can do. And we can do stuff. We are powerful.
Right.
You know, each person can really make a difference.
Sure.
Right
So, yeah, don't you think?
Really? Absolutely.
So let's do it. Let's do it. Let's stop
Make it
drinking
happen.
water out of bottles. And anyway, it's bad for us anyway. The water's been in there for 6 months, and it's completely disgusting for us, so we shouldn't drink it anyway. So anyway, but with that, I want to thank you guys so much. And Tim, I want to have you come back. I know you'll be back to our lovely California at some point, and we'll be chatting more. And I want to
Great.
really get into supporting you. I know I just personally want to say that I want more people like you in politics, and so we'll be grabbing our listeners around to support you in whatever you're doing.
Great.
And Jim will be talking more with you about
Great.
what's going on here and getting people here and reading this Mindful magazine and the amazing book that you wrote. And we're going to do it. And we've got to go, people. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. So that is my show with the guys, and I want to thank us all for participating with this. And again, isn't it great to know that there are some congressmen and senators and governors and many, many politicians are actually feeling the pull to be doing more mindful things. And so I highly recommend that you Google Mindful Magazine and see where you can find it. Also, Jim was telling me, and I was speaking to some of the editors, that they are completely open to people participating in the magazine. You can send your mindful thoughts, your mindful activities, kindness acts you've seen in the world or things that you've done yourself. And so let's do that. Let's participate with Mindful Magazine. Watch what's up with Congressman Tim Ryan and see where he is rising. He is considering running for governor, so we'll really hope that happens. You know, Ohio is a very important state. And so I want to remind you that you are listening to Singing in the Rain with Sunny Chayes, KCLA, and to remember to let's make a difference, let's sing in the rain, and you can go to my website, sunnychayes.com, and check out all the wonderful people I have on my show. And I want to look and see if there was anything else that Tim was talking about. Yeah, he definitely was explaining about how this meditation, mindful prayer, using the mind and body in a more appropriate way is getting into the military, into sports, and he was telling me some things about some generals who are actually using this. So this is going to really affect the veterans and our military. So again, this is Sunny Chayes. Thank you, Congressman Tim Ryan. Thank you, Jimian, for joining me today, and I am just thrilled to have you both, and bye-bye for now.